Hi, my name is Dr. Hans. In 2000, I received my medical degree and started on a path of internal medicine and infectious diseases. In 2017, I found out my little guy has SYNGAP1 syndrome, and I became a rare disease advocate. And in 2021, I joined the pharmaceutical industry to work on rare disease as much as possible. And I love talking about rare disease. Today, I'm going to tell you a story. With Rare Disease Day coming up, just this coming weekend, it's time for a story that reminds me on how long we've been living with rare disease, how we've supported the rare disease patient, and how difficult circumstances can be. So the story starts out a long time ago, about 12,000 years ago, in Papasidero. Hey, it worked for Macron. And that's in Italy, in the Calabria region. A group, a family, a clan named the Romito got together and said goodbye to a pair of loved ones.
I couldn't drive.
Shared their memories and knew they needed to move on, but they would be back. And it's really pretty inspirational. You know, if you have an imagination of the human condition, it's quite a story. And there they lay until roughly the 1960s, when excavations began at Grotta del Romito, otherwise known as Romito Cave. And it's clear that humans had used this cave throughout the Paleolithic and the Neolithic. Engravings of oryx, the predecessor of cattle, on the walls, pierced shells as jewelry from the sea, 25 kilometers away, 15, 16 miles. And during their work, and in later years as well, they discovered 6 grave sites. 4 of these were singles, 2 were doubles, and they had the skeletons of 8, what they refer to as Cro-Magnoid humans, 5 men, 3 women. They are Homo sapien. They are considered the first anatomically modern human, and just a bit stout, right? Hunter-gatherer. There's no sexual dimorphism. Men and women have a very similar shape, strong. And the dentition was really also strong. So you can imagine that their teeth were almost like another tool, right? Maybe shaping wood and bone and gosh, only knows what. Everything parent says a child shouldn't do. They were hunter-gatherers. Much more so than meat. The Neolithic revolution hadn't happened for them yet. They weren't sedentary. They didn't have agriculture. Animal husbandry was on its way for them. And one of the double graves is of Romito 1 and 2. And besides the 2 pieces of auric horn that they find buried with the pair, what was striking to the team working down here in Calabria was the positioning of Romito 1 here and Romito 2 here, with Romito 1 having their left arm draped and embracing Romito 2. This is particularly unusual. I mean, it does happen. I'm not an anthropologist on prehistorical burial practices, but a quick look, it's infrequent. I mean, we don't have a ton of burial sites from 12,000 years ago. This is unusual. There are others from 6,000 years ago, sort of facing each other in a loving embrace, man and woman. But as hunter-gatherers, the burial practices evolved later with the more sedentary lifestyles of the Neolithic. Romito 1 is approximately 25 to 30 years old, about 4'9", which was pretty standard at that time, female, based on the pelvic girdle. Romito 2 was clearly different. Romito 2 on the published skeletal survey is roughly 3'7", and as you can see, some portions of the pelvic girdle are missing. So at the time, it was conjectured that Romito 2 was a male, but they weren't sure. Based on the skeletal survey, the question was, is this Hurler syndrome? Is this another form of achondroplasia? And then later, in the 80s, the idea is put forth that this is acromesomelic dysplasia, Marotteau type AMDM, form of dwarfism. The dental review puts the age at roughly 15, based on teeth eruption. The skeletal survey, which is a little bit more reliable, is about 20 years old. And this is where the story pauses. There's not much more they could do to investigate Romito 1 and Romito 2. And last month, in the New England Journal of Medicine, there's this write-up letter to the editors that includes an update. And what they did was they extracted genetic material from the deep inner ear bone. This practice of ancient DNA analysis started by Svante Pääbo, 2022 Nobel Prize. Just completely fascinating look at the lineage of Homo sapien, Denisovan, Neanderthal. And what's clear is that Romito 1 and 2 are first-degree relatives. Romito 2, a female. And they are either mother-daughter or sisters. And I think, if you're going to make the assumption of a 20-year-old and a 30-year-old, we're dealing with sisters. And I think also from the positioning, as a dad, I grab my kids, sort of both arms around them, bear huggy. As an only child, I don't have a sibling, but my best friend, I grab with an arm around the shoulder, right? Maybe I'm just assuming pictures are taken, that sort of thing. So I'm working under the impression that these were sisters. And you see down there the Villa Bruna cluster, a more specific label for these hunter-gatherers coming up through southern Europe 14,000 years ago and moving into Western and Central Europe as they progress in time. Romito 2, homozygous for a missense variant of NPR2 associated with that AMDM. So could call researcher in the 80s. It's a disease of stature alone, in the sense that they have a normal IQ, an overall good health. It's not as if they have pulmonary issues, lung issues, cardiac issues. But certainly severe growth issues, and that will affect then potentially the range of motion as observed in Romito Cave's elbows and wrists, with decreased range of motion and the presumption of pain with frequent use, let's say, or heavy activities. I mean, it's certainly a hard set of circumstances in a hunter-gatherer environment. Just blows your mind. Essential ADLs, those are the activities of daily living. I'm sure it bugs you if you're looking. But she could certainly feed herself, dress herself, toilet herself, etc. Mobility. But instrumental ADLs, could she do the fine handiwork of piercing seashells and making jewelry? Could she use stone and bone and wood to shape tools? It's a challenge to see that. How about the distances they needed to cover? I think it's pretty easy to picture her on someone's shoulders or in her sister's arms for some of the travel. And you can certainly imagine her being the gatherer, right, in the hunter part. I don't see her taking down prey, running. And nevertheless, firewood and food gathering, that's her wheelhouse. What is clear from her lifespan is that her community cared for her and supported her and had a level of tolerance that is not necessarily universal in time. Yeah. And if you think about where she was laid to rest with only 6 graves, there's a honor to her being in that cave for the rest of time in the loving embrace of who I presume is her sister. And that is just a fantastic story. Like, the uphill battle, the support of the community, what we see and what we do for rare disease nowadays.
I too.
Look, I hope you enjoyed listening to this. I'll have the links and you can take a look at the papers yourself. And, whether it's in the present day or the recent past or the distant past, there's something special to the rare, right? Thanks